You might move the camera.
Thank you very much. That's why I have you sitting somewhere else so that we can get this organized. All right, thank you. Last week I started with the congregation that was gathered an introduction to the book of Philippians, and started it by going back to Acts chapter 16, where Paul is on his second missionary journey, and how he felt a calling from God to go over to Macedonia, and ended up at Philippi, where he met Lydia and a number of women who had gathered in a place of prayer down by the river. And she received the message so completely that she wanted her whole household to be baptized, brought Paul back to her house, and they stayed there for the time that they were in Philippi. And verse 16 of chapter 16 starts this way. On the way to the place of prayer, we, and we means Luke, who's the author, and Paul and any others that are with them, were followed by a certain girl who had a spirit of divination, which in our current time period, we would be calling that similar to a fortune teller, okay, very similar to that. And so this lady had a spirit of divination and would bring much money to her masters by the things she told people. She kept following us and crying out, "These men serve the Most High God and are proclaiming to you the way of salvation." Now, there's nothing wrong with that, except as the passage goes on in verse 18, this went on for many days, and Paul became increasingly annoyed at this noise. I mean, let's face it, if somebody is walking around claiming this person's a Christian, this person's a Christian, this person's a Christian, sooner or later you're going to be frustrated, and sooner or later the people around are going to start saying, maybe he's really not. Okay, maybe something's wrong here. And so Paul just didn't want the witness of Jesus Christ to go out in quite that way. So he turned around one day and spoke to the spirit within the girl, not to the girl, but to the spirit within her. In the name of Jesus Christ, I order you to come out of her. The spirit left her at once. Her masters were not happy. They realized their profits would now dry up. So they grabbed Paul and Silas and brought them before the authorities in Philippi. The judges were seated in the general marketplace and were told, "These Jews have come to bring confusion into our city by teaching things which it is unlawful for Romans to believe and do." I'm not real sure that that was the case, but that was their argument. The people of the town, verse 22, agreed with the masters, and the judges ripped off the clothes of Paul and Silas and had them beaten there in public. After beating them, they were thrown into the prison, and the jailer was commanded to place a secure guard on them. He then put them in the innermost prison and locked their feet in stocks. Paul and Silas were still praying and singing hymns around midnight, and all the prisoners were listening to their witness. I'm going to suggest, just nice and simple, next time you find yourself in an unexpected situation, uncomfortable situation, when there's really nothing that you can do to change your circumstances, it's a good time to pray and sing and talk about Jesus. It's a good time to get the message out there. And sure enough, at midnight, a great earthquake, verse 26, shook the foundations of the prison. The doors were opened wide, and all the chains fell off of every prisoner. The jailer, being awoken, realized the prison doors were open, so he decided to kill himself with his sword, believing that all the prisoners had been set free. Point of historical information might be the time when the phrase, you guard them with your life came to be. I don't know. I didn't even look that up, but it would have been interesting. You guard them with your life because in that period, if a jailer was entrusted with prisoners and the prisoners got away, he was killed. That was the way the law worked. That was what it meant to be a soldier or a prison keeper. And so he literally could have lost his life, might as well take it in his mind. Paul stopped him saying, verse 28, we are still here. Do not harm yourself. Calling for the lights, the jailer entered the place where Paul and Silas were, fell at their feet in great fear, and bringing them out of the prison, he asked them, how can I too be saved? The jailer was listening, right? He was paying attention to what was going on, even though he might have fallen asleep in the middle of it. And I just think that we ought to remember that even if we don't know people are listening to what we have to say, somebody might well be. They might be overhearing your words that you say to other people. They might be noticing your demeanor. I don't know if you've noticed when people are speaking in a foreign language, there's a good possibility you have a rough idea of what they're saying by the way they're being really intense with somebody. You just look at that, and other people might be saying that for you. Anyway, so say good things that demonstrate love, that build other people up, and that speak the good news. Paul's making a choice in the midst of his difficult situation to do the right thing. He opens up an opportunity to talk more about Jesus. Living with Jesus does not guarantee that we will be free from difficulty. We might be tormented at times by evil, as Paul was by this girl who was following him. We might be misunderstood and falsely accused, as Paul and Luke were, and they ended up in prison. We might be persecuted because of what we believe and how we act, and we too might even get thrown into prison at some point or be in some kind of a prison. So I'm just going to suggest this morning, every time something comes your way that doesn't, actually I'm going to leave it at that, doesn't have to be a bad thing. Every time something comes your way, turn to prayer. Sing God's praises. And tell the story one more time to somebody who might be listening. You can just say it out loud while you're walking down the street, and somebody might hear. Some sow seeds, some plant seeds, and some water the planting. It's going to take all of us to bring Christ into other people's lives. So be open, praying, and sharing what you believe about Jesus Christ. Amen. We're going to turn to hymn number